Hello YouTube. Of all the characters in the Elder Scrolls universe, Emperor Uriel Septim VII and his bastard son Martin are some of my personal favorites, although probably due to Oblivion nostalgia, as they obviously played a massive role in that game. But did you know that Emperor Uriel Septim VII had more than one bastard child? He had 4 legitimate children that we know of, and even another bastard son who got treated quite well in comparison to some of the other bastards throughout history. So today let's find out what we know about these other children. So, Uriel Septim VII. Emperor Uriel has had quite a long and rich backstory, which I detailed a few months ago in my video on him. So if you want his full story, be sure to watch that video, which is in the description. But for this subject, we need to take a bit of a closer look at his personal life, specifically in the early years of his rule. You see, overall in the early years of his reign, it's said that he was an optimistic, fair and talented ruler. And it is said that he was very well liked by most of the citizens of the Empire, who adored him as their emperor. It is also during this time that he married the woman who we would have as legitimate children with, a woman named Calaxes, a reportedly beautiful woman who was very popular with the Empire's citizens. This would be Emperor Uriel's only official wife, as despite a lot of marital problems, he does not seem to have divorced or disowned her. You see, behind closed doors, Calaxes was a manipulative, arrogant and ambitious woman, who seems to have vied with her husband for power over the Empire, as she'd more or less seduced him into a marriage that he would quickly come to regret after marrying. This led to a marriage with a lot of fighting behind closed doors, where Uriel Septim and Empress Cala would often try to hurt one another, something which likely made for quite an unhappy childhood for his legitimate children who were part of the household. As with Cala, he had 4 legitimate children. The eldest was a daughter named Princess Ariella, the crown princess. Then came Prince Geldall, then Prince Enman, and finally the youngest child, Prince Ebel. Now, likely because of the unhappy marriage, Emperor Uriel also fathered 2 illegitimate children that we know of, as he reportedly slept with several of his aides. One was called Calaxes, and the other was called Martin. Now on Martin I've spoken at length in the past, so I'll put a video dedicated to his full extensive backstory in the description, but the other 5 children I have yet to talk about, so let's start with the oldest child, Princess Ariella. Now, Princess Ariella was the crown princess of the Septim dynasty during the years before the Imperial simulacrum, which was the period of time where her father, Emperor Uriel, was locked away in Oblivion by the treacherous battle mage Jaeger Tharn. In the first Elder Scrolls game, the Elder Scrolls Arena, we worked to end this whole problem. Now, very little is known about Princess Ariella, other than that we know that her very existence was a bit of a threat to Jaeger Tharn, who knew that if he wanted to enact a coup in the Empire, he could not just kill the Emperor, as if he did that, she would succeed him in order to light the dragon fires, and so instead of assassinating the Emperor, he locked the Emperor up and impersonated him instead, so that there would not have to be another coronation and another ceremony for lighting the dragon fires with Ariella. Now, other than that, we know that Jaeger Tharn, while impersonating the Emperor, wanted to take Princess Ariella, who was just 16 at the time, as his wife, likely not in the persona of the Emperor, but rather when he was able to take his disguise off, so take his wife as Jaeger Tharn instead of as the Emperor. Now, the intention with that was obviously to become a part of the Septim family officially, and make sure that if he one day decided to let the Emperor die, he could still have some legitimate way of exercising power over the Empire. We don't really know what happened to her after the Imperial simulacrum, as the marriage seems to have never happened. Perhaps Jaeger Tharn had her killed in the end if she didn't cooperate, or she died of some other reason, as we know that about 40 years later, during the time of the Oblivion crisis, when she should have been around 50 to 60 years old, she was no longer around, as Uriel's eldest son, Geldall, had been named Crown Prince. Perhaps she was still around, but disowned for some reason or another, but then she would likely have been assassinated by the Mythic Dawn as well, around the Oblivion Crisis time. Although I think it's most likely that she died of some other calamity somewhere before the Oblivion Crisis, otherwise we would have known about her. Now, to talk about the new Crown Prince, Geldall, he, alongside Ariella, has the most extensive backstory, as we know that during the latter years of his father's reign, he had already taken on many of the ruling responsibilities of his aging father, and he had already had a great responsibility within the government. The tragic thing about him is that we know that he and his younger brothers had not taken any wives and hadn't married for a very long time, as they had feared that marrying someone from another province would show favoritism and lead to discontent in other provinces who didn't get an imperial princess. And then finally, when he was able to get married to a princess from High Rock, a girl named Ariella, it turned out that she was a secret Mythic Dawn agent who lived the lie of their marriage until that fateful day when the Oblivion Crisis started, and she killed him when the Emperor and all his heirs were assassinated. The man was killed by his own wife. Damn. Now, the other two legitimate sons we know literally nothing about, other than that Enman was just 1 year younger than Geldall, and Abel was 2 years younger than Enman, with Geldall being assassinated at the age of 56, Geldall at the age of 55, and Abel at the age of 53. Now, the fact that these three were not allowed to marry means that they likely had no children, unless they had bastard sons as well, which, I mean, is likely, meaning that the Septim line might still be out there in some shape or form in these bastards of these three princes, which is pretty interesting, although now that the Dragonfires are no longer required to keep Tamriel safe from Oblivion after Martin's sacrifice, I doubt that they would have much chance of getting the throne. In fact, I would not be surprised if Titus Mede I, or perhaps some of the other short-lived rulers before him in the opening years of the 4th era after the fall of the Septim dynasty, would have them assassinated, or perhaps the Mythic Dawn already did that, as they might have already found those bastards if the princes didn't do a good job at hiding them. But talking about bastard children, Uriel Septim VII had one more son that we know of, the bastard son Calaxes. Now, we know that Martin was hidden away and never spoken of and basically unknown to anyone but Grandmaster Joffrey, but Calaxes was actually acknowledged. You see, Calaxes was officially adopted by Emperor Uriel into his household and was named Prince, not in line for the throne, but a very public figure. Calaxes even got a very prestigious and public position out of it, as he became Archbishop of the One in the Temple of the One, which was then center of the 9 Divines worship on Tamriel. Now, I think a good reason for this position might have been in order to make sure that Calaxes was accepted by the public, but was perhaps put in a position where he was not able to have children as an archbishop. I don't know if archbishops can have children in the Elder Scrolls universe, but that would make a lot of sense in my opinion. Now, unfortunately for him, he would meet a quite violent end long before his father and his brothers would be assassinated by the Mythic Dawn, as Calaxes got into a severe argument with Emperor Uriel, his father, as Uriel wanted to reduce the powers of the 9 Divines clergy, and according to some sources, Calaxes was so unhappy with that he planned to rebel against his father. However, that rebellion was not to be, as he was swiftly assassinated by the Imperial Guard, likely at his father's command, who from that point on had not accepted any other bastards into the family. Now, finally, there's of course Martin, but his backstory and his story, like his father, are so extensive that I already made a full video on him, which is in the description, in case you wanted to learn more about him, or about Emperor Uriel. And that is basically everything I can say about the other children of Uriel Septim VII. And I sincerely hope that I managed to teach you something new about the Elder Scrolls lore today. And if I did, why not give the video a like, as that's YouTube's way of determining whether or not content is worthy or not. That being said, all there's left for me to do is to vocally thank my top Patreon supporters. Mr. Bernardo Binda, His Soul, Gabriel Binda, Doji, K-Legend Hunter Joe, RB Dash, King Chris, Lance Vandertooth, Volkure of Argonia, RP the Beast, Devin Mattingly, Rakai, and Sword of Bushido. They and all the others on screen make my videos possible, and for that I am very grateful. That said, I'll see all of you in the next Elder Scrolls lore video. Probably next week. Bye bye.